Following a summer of racially charged police shootings in Minnesota and across the United States, conversations on racial bias, profiling, and use of force in policing continue to occur. Joining me in the studio is Senator Scott Dibble of Minneapolis. Welcome, Senator.
Thanks, Shannon.
You sponsored two bills, at least two bills last session, dealing with policing that were tabled. After the Philando Castile shooting, the Star Tribune quoted you as saying, "It is clear, and it has been clear for a long, long time, that the way we conduct policing in this country needs to change dramatically." So what ideas do you have for the next session?
Well, no matter what your perspective is on this whole subject, it just cannot be denied that we have a rift in our communities. Communities of color, in particular African American communities, really feel like they're treated differently by the police. And if you doubt that, all you have to do is go to the research evidence that shows by a huge factor communities of color, African American people feel like they're treated unfairly, with skepticism. They experience rates of brutality and worse at much, much higher rates than majority culture white people do. And the best that can be said is there's a lack of trust between the police and the communities that they serve. And so the fundamental challenge we have in service to public safety and crime reduction and fighting crime is to repair that rift, to grow that trust, to make sure that people feel like they're getting the kind of public service that they deserve and that upholds their rights and their dignity. I lived for a long time in the heart of some of the poorest areas of Minneapolis, and I can tell you that everyone who lives there, with a very, very few exceptions of the criminal element, want to live in safe and secure communities and want to have a good relationship with the police and feel protected and well guarded by the police. And so, you know, I can't say for sure which package of bills, if I'll renew the existing package or not. I want to work with the communities that are most affected, the stakeholders, the police, our legislative and executive branch leadership, to come up with those ideas that will make sure that we are serving the interests of public safety, building a public trust, and making sure that we're upholding what the police need to feel like they can do their jobs in the most professional manner.
So in the interest of gathering more information, Governor Dayton has suggested a task force. Do you think this is a necessary next step?
I think that would be an excellent step to take, and have actually already engaged with the governor as well as his senior staff on that, encouraging him to do that. I think he talked about doing that after the Philando Castile shooting. And I think if we could emulate and follow the model that the president did, that he set through the Task Force on 21st Century Policing, to gather a wide array of stakeholders around a table to build a consensus package of policy ideas and interventions and supports to maybe move on in the next legislative session. That would be a great way. We could take that task force out across the state, conduct listening sessions, engage with expert research, make sure that all the key players are at the table providing their perspective and their input.
So, to change tacks just a little bit, there's increasing recognition that the police are often dealing with members of the community experiencing mental health crisis. Do you think that the police need additional training in this area?
Well, I think the article that was just in the paper either yesterday or today that talks about de-escalation training is the term of art, where police come across an individual who's in crisis, obviously in crisis, and there might be some opportunity to take advantage of time and space to ramp down the intensity of the dynamic in that situation through the use of professionals, through excellent training that the police can take advantage of to maybe reach for some different outcomes, some better communication, and maybe not conclude some of these situations as we have seen in tragic outcomes.
Right, and then to contrast that, it came out after the Philando Castile shooting that the officer involved had, in 2014, taken a Bulletproof Warrior training course. And so the criticism of these courses is that they're creating more of a militaristic dynamic or using more force. And then following the Ferguson incident, the Justice Department said, no, the police should take more of a guardianship mentality. So should the legislature weigh in on this debate in policing practices?
Right. I think in so many words, yes. I mean, this is one of the key findings of the 21st Century Task Force that the President's Commission turned in, and that is changing the posture, the culture, the mentality of a police department from that of warrior to that of guardian, demilitarization, just changes kind of a basic frame around how the police view the communities that they're serving and how they interact with those that they're serving, and might help facilitate ideas of better communication, de-escalation, not making assumptions once they enter a particular circumstance and situation, but engage in more thoughts around problem solving and crisis management and that sort of thing. And I think that's a very, very powerful and operative frame to look at. Guardianship versus warrior mentality. We've seen all of the excess military equipment coming into police departments, militarizing our police force, and maybe presenting a hostile face to a community that there actually should be working in partnership with. And so there are ways absolutely for the legislature to work with resources and the leadership of our local communities to facilitate training and to get some of those tools in hand.
Very quickly, police body cameras, are they a help or a hindrance?
Well, I think body cams have the potential to be a huge help if the policies around them and if their use is done correctly. It's a very, very complicated subject. You really want to, I think the critics who say that a body cam doesn't actually capture the whole story are correct, so we want to make sure that we understand the data that's received through camera technology. We also want to make sure that we're protecting individual rights and privacy rights.
Issues.
That's a very complicated question as well. But to the extent that more data and more awareness about the specifics around a particular circumstance can be gathered in context, protecting all the rights, making sure we're being intelligent about it, I think they can be a huge help.
Senator Dibble, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it.